It didn't happen right away, but everything worked out for them in the end. This is what they dreamed of: a good family, wonderful children who are already grown up and have started their own families, a career they built, along with prosperity, and they still have time left. Neither Roman Antonovich nor Maria Popovna have yet reached their half-century mark. They're just approaching that date. Now they can reminisce, and they often do, about how the first 10 years, no, almost 30 years of their married life passed. They started from scratch, a cliche, but it fits them perfectly. Their only dowry was 2 diplomas and the certainty that they had found each other, that together they were not just twice as strong, but even more so. Despite their youth, they didn't do anything spontaneously. They discussed and weighed every step. That's why Roman Antonovich didn't change the direction of his business, and today he is an executive director with authority and respect from colleagues and partners. Things turned out a bit differently for Maria Popovna. She primarily focused on the children and the home, and only later, when the children grew up, when Maria Popovna became a mother-in-law and then a young and energetic grandmother, did she open a cosmetics store with her husband's support. This store quickly became popular. Maria Popovna carefully selected suppliers without inflating prices and just as carefully ensured that customers were served at a high level in her store. She dreamed of this level of service the first time she visited Germany, where she was amazed by the salespeople in big and small stores in Berlin and Leipzig. It seemed like they were waiting just for her, ready to show and explain everything. And the cherry on top was the coffee they offered her right there while explaining the features of the cosmetics. So now, in Maria Popovna's store, there was a coffee machine, and a cup of aromatic coffee was offered to all who wanted it. Becoming an executive director, Roman Antonovich was inevitably drawn into non-work spheres. Due to his status, he now had to relax differently, hunting and fishing with partners, conversations over golf, saunas. But saunas didn't threaten him. Many knew that Roman Antonovich had been a hypertensive from his youth, so they didn't invite him to such events. As for women, Roman Antonovich was known among colleagues as a white crow. He loved only his wife. Some predicted that this would pass over time with so many beauties around, but he ignored all hints. Everyone understood he was lucky with his wife. Later, they realized he was lucky with the children too. At least his kids weren't spoiled brats. But people envied him, of course, carefully hiding their envy. Many would have been happy to be in Roman Antonovich's place, and someone was always trying to provoke him. But how could they know that over all these years, Roman and Maria had become one whole? Neither of them had come from a complete family. They were raised by their mothers, never saw their fathers, and received no help from them. So you could say that Roman and Maria's invention was standing back to cover each other's rear, figuratively speaking. That's how they started their family life, how they rose in the world, how they live today, and how they raised their children in their own image and likeness.
Once, Roman Antonovich's partner, probably for the 5th time, started a conversation with him about needing to diversify life and used himself as an example. He said he had a wonderful wife, but she was already known to him inside and out. So he found a way to refresh the relationship, flirting with secretaries. He said it just like that, secretaries, in the plural. And he shared his own theory, tested in practice. The partner had no intention of divorcing his wife, so he developed a scheme that would provide him leisure while keeping everything hidden from his wife. It was simple. For the vacant secretary position, he personally hired a new one, considering not so much professional skills as appearance. And the age of potential secretaries was usually far from Balzac's. Positions became vacant easily, 2 or 3 remarks and immediate dismissal. And not everyone would tell what happened, so a vacancy, a new one, and a proven way to work with her. The usual start was emphasized attention from the boss, compliments, small souvenirs from business trips abroad. Sometimes he had to hint at a higher salary if the secretary proved clever. And young secretaries were often clever. Not all, of course, belonged to that cohort, but there were enough. Then events unfolded according to a well-rehearsed script. After some time, the boss found a reason, or often a pretext, and fired the secretary. Usually the girl left without a scandal. She didn't want their affair with the boss to become known to everyone. And then a new vacancy appeared, and so on in a cycle. This boss even complained at home to his wife about the secretary turnover, saying that new ones just couldn't work properly, and a good secretary was a big deal. Knock on wood, and I've never had problems with my wife, he taught Roman Antonovich with a smug smile. But if I had some bunny on the side, there would definitely be someone who saw us and told my wife. Then scandal, hysterics, surveillance, or like our mutual acquaintances, a detective would gather evidence. In short, a total headache and gossip. But this way, what complaints? A new secretary, and she doesn't stay long because she works poorly. And while she works, life isn't boring. Want to try it? Back then, Roman Antonovich refused the experiment. He had no desire, and he didn't want to deceive his wife. But the partners sowed doubt, and Roman Antonovich started thinking, what if he tried to refresh his sensations? Though he was ashamed to think that way, the desire proved stronger than principle. And while the man was thinking, he had already fired his old secretary, for family reasons, actually. Meanwhile, Maria Paulna accidentally met Olga, who came to her store trying to choose fashionable perfumes and bought the ones the store owner recommended. She also offered the customer coffee. They sat down together, and while drinking coffee, they started talking. Almost the same age, but with such different fates. Olga was a widow who still mourned her husband. If not for her daughter, she might have given up on herself. Her daughter was good, just very explosive. Olga was sure that if they had raised Sveta together with her husband, she would have been softer and more tolerant. Olga had chosen the perfumes for Sveta's 20th birthday, and her daughter didn't use cosmetics at all. Look at her, Olga said, handing over her phone with a photo. On the screen was a beautiful girl with attentive and intelligent eyes. Not everyone would approach her, thought Maria Paulna. And Olga, as if reading her thoughts, said, Sveta looks so cold, so unapproachable, but only on the outside. She never passes by if she sees someone needs help. But guys hurry past her, so give them such a look that you immediately lose the desire to get acquainted. And the latest incident? I don't know what to do. And Olga told what happened. Maria Paulna understood why Olga opened up to her, almost a stranger. It happens when you want to share with someone, but innate or acquired restraint doesn't allow it. And Olga was in such a situation now.
A week ago, Sveta left the university, took her documents, and left without explaining anything to anyone. Only the next day did she tell Olga that she had slapped a professor. To Olga's question, what did he do? Sveta replied, he decided I was his surf girl. She said it and turned away. Olga understood everything, even without details. Not in sequence, but it became clear that this professor had crossed the line, either didn't see it or ignored it, and certainly didn't expect such a reaction from a student. I don't know what to do with the university now, Olga said, but I won't force Sveta back, and it wouldn't work anyway. Maria Paulna pieced together the picture of this small family of mother and daughter. Sveta was a late and hard-won child, but her husband didn't get to enjoy fatherhood. He died in an accident on the bypass road. They couldn't save him. The seatbelt, I didn't have time to fasten it. That's what her friend said, pulling herself together. The merit went to little Sviatlanka. She had to switch to her. But that bitterness remained, which arose after her husband's death. And here Maria Paulna had no doubts. They weren't just husband and wife. They loved each other. And Olga, no matter how hard she tried, couldn't detach from the emptiness and bitterness, which passed on to her daughter. So Sveta formed an ideal image of a man, but no one matched it. Probably not yet. She hadn't met such a person. But then the cynical professor appeared, and the girl rebelled. Olga told Maria Paulna, your daughter needs to be switched to something. Yes, agreed Olga. I think Sveta needs to go to work. Well, look. Give me your phone, asked Maria Paulna. I promise nothing, but I'll try to help with the job. Thank you, but Sveta's unlikely to use the connection. I know her, replied Olga, but we'll try. Maria Paulna really wanted to help them. In the evening, she didn't have time to tell about her new acquaintance. At dinner, her husband complained that he still hadn't found a secretary today. The girls who came for interviews were semi-literate, made so many mistakes in one application that he barely restrained himself from correcting the text with a red marker like a teacher. But he couldn't be without a secretary, he complained. I'll try to test the candidates tomorrow. Maria Paulna went to the kitchen and from there called Olga, telling her that Sveta could go for an interview at the office of a solid company they're looking for a secretary. And she, Olga, knows the wife of the executive director who will conduct the interview, so there's a chance to influence the decision.
"No need, Mom," Sveta replied, as Olga had expected. "I'll do it myself." Sveta successfully passed the interview and started work the next day. She told her mom that the boss was correct, asked relevant questions, and she also liked 2 photos on his desk. One, presumably of his wife, a nice woman with a kind smile. The other of children, 2 boys and a girl, probably grandchildren since they looked like preschoolers. The next day, Sveta stopped by Maria Polna's work to thank her for suggesting the office where they hired her without connections. And her daughter said that the photos on the boss's desk and the boss himself made a good impression on her. No familiarity, reserved, and somehow genuine. But she couldn't tell or thank Maria Polna. At the store, they said the owner was at the dentist with a wisdom tooth problem, so she couldn't talk yet, only wrote them a message.
Indeed, Maria Polna couldn't speak. She tried to joke to herself that she was apparently wise, but the tooth hurt so much that she lay in a half-daze until evening, though the dentist seemed to have done something to the tooth. But a week later, Olga still came to the store. She absolutely had to see Maria Polna, though she understood there would be little pleasant in her story. But Olga felt obligated to tell her new acquaintance what she had learned from her daughter. More precisely, let's say the stars aligned because Roman Antonovich decided to heed his partner's advice to diversify his measured life by involving a secretary right when Svetlana came to work for him. He really tested her ability to handle a computer, made sure the girl wrote Grammarly and knew business etiquette, and then the devil tempted him. He decided to start an intrigue. He had no experience, only his partner's advice and what he heard from others, so he immediately behaved like a boss with a subordinate, and several days passed like that. Moreover, his wife was suffering from a sore tooth, and Roman Antonovich sincerely felt sorry for her, so he didn't stay late at work. She was already forgetting what she had to endure at the dentist and was getting ready for work, and Friday was approaching with a meeting with that very advisor on secretaries. Roman Antonovich knew he wouldn't forget to ask about progress, so Roman Antonovich proceeded to practice. He started using the intrigue method with the secretary. He began calling Svetlana to his office several times a day, giving trivial tasks but with lengthy preambles on non-work topics. It didn't come out very well for Roman Antonovich, and he himself understood that, but he didn't give up. He could come out to the reception when only Svetlana was there and hint that she could have a higher-paying job if she expanded her duties a bit. Svetlana, who had already formed a good opinion of her boss, especially compared to that professor she slapped, first thought it was his sense of humor, but by the second day the tone of his humor became insistent and unambiguous. True, there was no direct assault yet, it was still reconnaissance, but everything was heading toward the boss wanting a real expansion of services from her. What made it worse was that her mom spoke so well of his wife, and Svetlana liked the woman in the photo. But what to do if the boss crossed the line? Go hand to hand again? Maybe consult with mom. So sorry for mom, and sorry for that woman in the photo. Offensive for her. So Svetlana decided to act differently. The next morning, as soon as the boss entered his office, he immediately called Svetlana. He was determined because he started painting her prospects for a good attitude toward him with so-called benefits, where the salary was immediately increased and guaranteed. And while he was saying this, in Svetlana's jacket pocket, a dictaphone was diligently recording everything.
Svetlana hadn't decided yet how to use this recording, but she knew for sure that if she had had such a recording back then, maybe it wouldn't have been her leaving the university, but that professor who had probably practiced with students so many times. Then their conversation was interrupted by the partner. He called the boss on his mobile, and after talking with him, the boss left, saying that unfortunately, he had to say goodbye to Svetlana today. Damn business. We'll continue tomorrow, Svetlana. But Svetlana didn't wait until tomorrow. She asked to be replaced for a couple of hours and went to her mom, told her everything, let her listen to the recording. Mom was very upset. It's offensive for Maria Polna, she said. I understand people, but she doesn't deserve this. Send me this recording. Mom had already decided what to do with this surprise, in quotes. Olga went to the store to see Maria Polna. First, she told her that her Svetlana got a job as a secretary at her husband's firm, that she came back from the interview confident that her future boss was a decent person. But apparently, she was wrong. and Olga played the recording. Maria Polna hadn't cried in a long time, but here she couldn't hold back. Her soul was in turmoil. She was ashamed for herself and her husband. She thought about the children. What would she tell them? And how did it happen that she noticed nothing unusual in Roman's behavior? Just recently, Roman tried to help her with that tooth. What wisdom tooth if Maria Polna turned out to be naive and pitiful? But no, she refused to be pitiful. And she already knew what she would do. When Roman Antonovich returned from work, his wife called him to dinner. He was already anticipating something delicious, as Masha always cooked. And here she serves him a plate from the festive set, and on the plate is a photo of Svetlana, which Maria Polna, like the dictaphone recording, took from Olga's phone, and his, Roman's photo with a catch-up frame in a heart shape. And that's it. Roman Antonovich is afraid to raise his eyes to his wife, afraid from shame, from that enveloping vileness he acquired himself. He now learned and believed that in a minute or even less, your whole life can flash before your eyes. And it does. Their life with Masha. Good. Very good. Up to this plate and his voice on the phone. In his temples, then the back of his head, Roman Antonovich starts pounding. He still manages to notice that Masha is saying something with a contemptuous smile, but he doesn't hear the words. Roman passes out. That's how his high blood pressure acted. Maria Polna immediately notices what's happening to her husband. Forgetting everything, she saves him as she has done more than once. But they can't do without an ambulance, and they take him to the hospital.
Roman bitterly admits his guilt, realizes that he needs no one but Masha. He's ashamed that he took advantage of the new secretary being a young girl, not rich. That was obvious right away. Probably no one could protect her. And if it had been his daughter in Svetlana's place, and if he had pulled it off with Svetlana as his partner advised, what then? Would he have stayed in the family, in his home with Masha, learned to lie, maybe even succeeded at it? No, he doesn't want that. And now the children know. Maybe they already know. They won't forgive him. They won't bring the grandchildren. And who is he now? Roman Antonovich stares at the ward door without looking away. He's waiting for Masha, waiting and afraid. What will he say to her, that the devil tempted him? But he has to speak anyway and wait for what Masha decides. Interestingly, if they switched places and Masha tried to diversify her life that way, no, that couldn't be. And if Masha comes to him, he'll ask her about it. His wife came to his ward after talking with the doctor. He calmed her, said they stopped the attack, but he needs to stay another week or so. And here Masha takes a chair and sits next to him. Looks at Roman Antonovich, in her eyes is worry. Always looks at him like that when something's wrong with him. And he tells everything as it is. He's never been so ashamed in his life, and so scared that he might be left alone if Masha doesn't believe and doesn't forgive. But he still tells. When he gets to the part that nothing happened with this Svetlana, Masha interrupts him and says, "Do you know what this girl had to go through?" And she tells that she grew up only with her mom. Her father died, but she grew up a good, decent girl. Entered university, and their one scoundrel professor insulted her with his pressure, got handsy, and then Svetlana couldn't even imagine such a thing was possible, and she slapped him. Then took her documents and left the university. She was in a stupor for some time. Her mom tried to stir her daughter somehow. Maria Polina told that her husband had a secretary vacancy. Let Sveta go to work, not sit staring at one point. Maybe for someone that professor's act wasn't so stunning, but this girl is different. She also wanted, like her mom, to love one main man in her life. That's why she took it that way. And then you showed her that you're no better than that professor, and she closed in on herself again. What are we going to do? Maria Polina looks at him. You can leave, I heard. I know it happens. If you don't need me, why didn't you say it straight? Don't you know me? Masha, and Roman Antonovich with difficulty lifts himself on the pillow. This is all my stupidity, or I gave in to my friend's persuasions, thought maybe I'm really missing something in life, and I swear to you, first time, and nothing happened. Forgive me, Masha. I'm ready to ask your forgiveness all my life. Just don't drive me away, and don't tell the children. How will I look them in the eyes, and who am I without you, without the children? Forgive me, Masha. And I'll ask forgiveness from that girl Svetlana, too. After all, it's true that my daughter could face such a situation.
I'd strangle her offender with my own hands. And this Svetlana has no protector. I'll go to her and beg for forgiveness, and from you I'll beg forgiveness. Forgive me, Masha. She will forgive her husband. The children know nothing. Essentially, there was no betrayal. But what happened brought a far from happy note into their life. And was it worth it?